Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes here to do our SEC Power Rankings heading into Week 9. Blake, we had Missouri at 13. Vandy at 14 last week. Nothing changed. Missouri won that one 17-14 in what was not a very appealing game to watch. Vandy had the ball on the other side of the Missouri 50 in the final couple minutes. Couldn't make a first down. So anyway, we stay where we were. We thought Missouri was the better team heading into this one, and Missouri stays at 13 thanks to its win over Vanderbilt.
Yeah, that's about all I got. Like we said, Missouri's defense has been really good. We talked about it in our preview this week. We've talked about it over the weeks. I think that's something that you still have to tip your hat to them on. That has kept them in a lot of these games. Obviously, gave them a chance to win this game here against Vanderbilt. Meanwhile, on the flip side, I just think Vanderbilt is. I just don't see a lot of. I don't know. It's just they are where they are right now, and I don't have a lot of confidence in terms of the rest of the season. Beyond that, we'll see. But this was a game that if you look at the rest of their schedule, they needed to win if they were going to find that SEC win. I feel like it's going to be hard to come by elsewhere.
I feel like Auburn has been stuck at 12 for a while. Auburn off last week. What else do we say?
I mean, look, I said it in our preview for the Arkansas game this week. I think Auburn's actually done some decent things at times in recent weeks. I mean, it's the entire situation with Auburn for me is like we know where this is headed, but it's just you're kind of delaying what we all know is coming in terms of the firing of Brian Harsin. It's going to happen. Like, I mean, let's just call it what it is. And I feel like that's why with Auburn right now, kind of no matter what you do, I don't know, it's like if they beat Arkansas this week, does that change anything? I mean, it's just like I feel like that's where we are. But I mean, the play on the field, you said something in like they haven't given up. They've been right there with a chance in some of these games at times. Played really well at times. Thought against Ole Miss, certainly had their chance against LSU. But things just that program is kind of just right there right now in terms of I don't feel like there's a lot to kind of lean on one way or the other than the fact that you kind of expect a change to come at some point.
What was Texas A&M preseason? Number 6?
You mean nationally or for us?
Nationally.
I think they were 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. 9.
Well, they're 11 in our SEC Power Rankings this week.
I mean, rightfully so, I think. I think I had them at 11. Yeah, I mean, because you look at the teams ahead of them, right? We always say somebody's got to go somewhere, and close losses only mean so much at this point in the season. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to is at some point you got to win some games. And right now, A&M is not winning games. And I think that's the difference between them and the teams in front of them in terms of just finding a way to win some of these games. And you and I talked about it. We thought the South Carolina one was a winnable type game, but South Carolina made the plays. A&M did not. And, obviously we can go back to saying, well, they played close against Alabama and all this other stuff, but, their record is what it is at this point, right, Chris? I mean, they're 3-4. And I mean, we can talk about excuses and young and all, like, it's just, they've lost 3 games in a row. Been a tough schedule, but now they got to play an Ole Miss team that probably going to be a little bit angry. So I'm not surprised at all to see A&M where they are.
Yeah, I think we're finally seeing A&M for what it is rather than what everyone thought it would be. Which, you go back and look at that line in Columbia. Wrong team was favored in that one.
Yeah, we got that one wrong, and I'm willing to admit
we
that,
did. So. But we were also very nervous about that one. Okay. By the way, if you're wondering, A&M and Auburn are both 3-4. Auburn has given up 6 points more a game than it has scored. A&M actually still outscoring opponents, not by a lot, 1.5 a game. But number 10, your Florida Gators, who are 4-3.
Gators.
Well, I think they're actually Blaine's Florida Gators. Isn't that how it goes around here?
Oh, boy. Don't say that.
In any case, Florida still does have that win over Utah. I mean, the Gators have been erratic, but we knew it would kind of be a tenuous situation for Billy Napier. Florida averaging 3.3 points more per game than it is giving up. I don't know what else to say about the Gators.
Yeah, I mean, look, their lone SEC win to this point is Missouri. Obviously, gave up a lot of points to Tennessee and LSU, but so have other teams. Now, I think it's kind of an interesting finish here for Florida because we talked about the defense. Obviously, that's been an issue at times, but you have played those two teams in particular. Those two, Tennessee and LSU, can put up points, and you still have that Utah win that still looks pretty good to this point. Now they got to get ready to play Georgia. Obviously, won't be easy there, but I'm curious with Florida to see how they finish the season because they're right here where they are now. It's in our rankings, but you know, I don't know. I don't think they're going to beat Georgia. But then you go to A&M. You got South Carolina at home. You go to Vandy. Like to me, those are all three winnable SEC games for Florida, and I think that tells you a lot maybe about the Gators heading into the final stretch of the season, and then maybe in the next season, kind of see where they are if they can have a strong finish here.
Okay, now we get to one of the weirder teams in our countdown. And I thought they'd be a little higher this week. South Carolina, number 9. Let me give you some numbers on the Gamecocks here, okay? Carolina averaging 33.1 a game, giving up 24.9. That means an 8.3 scoring margin. However, total offense a game, 374 to 361. Yards per play, 5.8 to 5.3. Turnover margin, -6. Blake, that does not sound like a 5-2 team, but here it is. Again, special teams have got a lot to do with that too. South Carolina is phenomenal on special teams, but I think that's why we were a little bit lower on South Carolina. Well, that and the fact that the team right in front of Carolina beat the Gamecocks head to head. But in any case, you could argue a lot of different ways with the Gamecocks, but I think that little nagging feeling that maybe statistically, while it is a 5-2 team, statistically doesn't seem like a 5-2 team. But at the same time, it's got a couple of big wins. A&M and Kentucky on the road. I get Kentucky didn't have Levis, but
Well,
this team just believes in itself, and it just seems to be able to continue the magic from week to week, even though stats don't suggest this is a 5-2 team.
that's the thing is like, and I know some South Carolina fans be like, how are they sitting here at ninth still? It is, I think there's a couple things. And again, this is a staff composite ranking. This is not just me and Chris putting our rankings in here. It's our entire Southeastern 14 staff. I I think what's interesting is like it is the full body of work, right? And their full body of work to this point has been good. But when you compare it to maybe some of the other teams in front of them, I mean, what we're going to say right now, Chris, is South Carolina's best win is going to be against the Kentucky team, right? Without Will Levis, I think that's still their
Yep.
best win. And the problem is too, like the A&M win, it's a great win for South Carolina right now, but like A&M stock, as we just said, has fallen more than any other team in the SEC. And so I think when you compare stuff like that, I can understand why they're still maybe down here and they're below some of these couple next teams we're going to talk about. Even though, again, I know people say, how can they be behind Kentucky and all this? As we always mention, head to head at this point of the season. Although it's kind of funny when you look at the next teams we have coming up, head to head actually works out okay in some of
Yeah.
these favors. But in this one, this is more about, I think, the full picture. And South Carolina is moving up in our rankings, but I think I can't say I'm surprised that people would still have them below, some of these others because it is power rankings. And I think that's the game too, Chris, is if we played the neutral field game right now, right? And let's say we put South Carolina on neutral field against some of these teams ahead of them, I still tend to think the teams ahead of them would
Yeah.
be favored in those games. So I think that plays into it probably as well.
Well, Arkansas, which is our next team, took care of Carolina handily. That's before some of the injuries started really taking a toll. Arkansas is getting a little healthier. Arkansas's had a brutal schedule, a lot
Yeah.
tougher than Carolina's. Arkansas is only averaging 0.1 point a game more than it's giving up. It's got a plus 31 yardage margin. It's actually giving up more yards per play than it's giving up. It's 0 in turnovers, not very good on special teams. Been a hit and miss year for the Razorbacks, but you can kind of explain it. And Arkansas's got nice wins over Carolina and Cincinnati, and probably should have beaten A&M. No, probably, but that's not how it went. The win at BYU a couple of weeks ago was a nice win. I think I think Arkansas is a comfortable pick here at 8.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with Arkansas being where they are because I think, like you said, injuries matter, and they have certainly had some injury issues, without a doubt. And we talked about this, the schedule, that brutal stretch of games, that they go 1-3 in those last four. But I mean, all things considered, we thought they were looking down the possibility of going 0-4, and so they found a way to win that BYU one. And look, the schedule doesn't get any easier. They go play Auburn early game. They're on the Plains this week. They got a Liberty team that's just playing fantastic football. They got LSU. They got Ole Miss. They got to go to Missouri. So Arkansas' schedule is it's brutal. And again, we kind of look at where they are right now. I just think KJ Jefferson is the game changer. And if their defense is a little bit more healthy, you feel a lot more optimistic about Arkansas heading into this stretch run of the season.
Okay, before we get to the top half of our countdown, we've got some big games coming up this week to add some extra excitement. We at Southeastern 14 will be making a lot of picks in the Stakes app. That's STAKES. We want to see if you guys agree or disagree with our takes. And our handle over there is Southeastern 14. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Sign up for stakes. Place your prediction whether you're for or against us. If you use the invite code Southeastern14 when you sign up, you'll get a double welcome bonus. Okay, the number 7 team in our countdown is Mississippi State. People may have a little bit of an issue with that, but we've talked about brutal schedules. Let's rewind State a little bit. From week 3 on, at LSU, Bowling Green, Texas A&M, Arkansas, at Kentucky, at Alabama. State is still outscoring teams by 9 points a game. One thing about State, though, that offense gets a lot of attention, but it's just averaging 5.7 yards a play, 5.73, which is actually right at what Missouri and Auburn are doing. Isn't that crazy? Missouri, Auburn, and Mississippi State all averaging the same amount of yards per play. Pretty good on special teams, plus in the turnovers. I think State's kind of hit a rough patch, but if you want to say we've ranked them too high, I think you've got a case there too.
I mean, to me, they've reached the state of like, I don't know what to do with them. Like they've fallen into that category now with Mississippi State, where it's like, I don't know where to put them, because do I take the value of beating an A&M and Arkansas in convincing fashion, earlier in the month, or do I take them at losing what felt like a winnable game at Kentucky, and then just getting 30-6? Let's be honest, like that felt like a game that was more one-sided than that in the Alabama game.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the 6 came at the bitter end on the last play of the game.
Yeah. So I think that's, it was a bad spot. Let's call it what it was. Like, that was just a bad spot for Mississippi State. And I still think from a talent standpoint, though, they are probably right around where they should be, when you look at it from that. But guess what? You could make that argument with other teams and say they're not. So I don't know what to do with Mississippi State. I was very curious to see where everyone would rank them this week, because I just didn't have a great feel for, honestly, where to put them compared to some of these other teams.
Okay, the top 6 teams in our countdown all have double-digit scoring margins. None of the bottom 8 do. We start from the bottom on our top 6 here. That's Kentucky. The Wildcats are averaging 5.8 yards a play, giving up 5.0, outscoring teams 26-16. The Cats were pretty consensus 6 in our rankings. And, of course, Kentucky beat Mississippi State 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot to, at this point in the power rankings this week. There's not a. I think this is probably what you expected in terms of where these teams are. Just maybe you flip a little bit of the order somewhere along the way, but it's about what I expected. Kentucky gets that win over Mississippi State, as we talked about, and that was just a huge kind of bounce back spot for them. Getting Levis back was important, as we know. Coming off that South Carolina loss, coming off of game they felt like they could have won at Ole Miss. But getting that bounce back against Mississippi State was huge. Got the week off. Now your biggest opportunity of the season, going to Tennessee with a chance to, maybe win that game, and shock the world, if you will. So a lot of kind of fun stuff to think about with Kentucky moving forward, because the schedule too, obviously they got to go to Tennessee. They get Georgia at home. Playing those two That looks kind of tough, but you do still have games at Missouri against Vanderbilt. Those are both very winnable games, obviously for Kentucky. So I think the Cats are okay right now, but as we said, it's going to be a challenge going to Knoxville against this high-powered Tennessee offense.
Yeah, changing our rankings. This was not hard to make. LSU has leapfrogged Ole Miss after kind of a beatdown in the Bayou. Although I think the game, and Brian Kelly even pointed this out, that game was a little more lopsided on the scoreboard than it probably was in reality. But however you settle there, a 25-point win over Ole Miss has vaulted LSU to number 4, knocked Ole Miss down to 5, and I don't think anybody's going to have an issue with this. Boy, if you're LSU, you'd still love to have that Florida State game over. But anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean LSU clearly, as we said, not surprised to see them move up to this spot. And that's the thing, Chris. Think about this right now, which we know who our top 4 are now in this power rankings this week. Those teams are playing each other next week, and just think about how fun that is with Tennessee versus Georgia and Alabama and LSU. I mean, that is just, you couldn't ask for a better setup. But of course, these teams have got to win this week, and of course, Tennessee's the team, and Georgia plays Florida. Tennessee's got to play Kentucky, as we just talked about. So it's kind of a fun setup to think about right now. But yes, LSU made the most movement here in terms of moving all the way up to 4. Great win against Ole Miss, and now we'll see if the Rebels can bounce back in College Station.
Okay, 3-2-1 in order going down. Alabama 3, Tennessee 2, Georgia 1. These teams have had very different seasons. Of course, we know about Alabama's loss in Tuscaloosa, which it followed up, in Knoxville, giving up 52 points, followed up by nearly shutting out Mississippi State. Tennessee, as we said, may have the best resume in college football. It's beaten Alabama. It's won at LSU. It's beaten Florida. Won at Pitt. Georgia, not much of a resume so far, to be honest. The blood of Oregon is standout. And the win against South Carolina looking better. That was on the road. But the other wins over Auburn, Missouri, Vandy. And the Missouri one was closer than it should have been. Anyway, I don't think there's a lot of debate on these teams. You could put Tennessee over Georgia if you like based on results. Although Georgia's defense light years better than Tennessee's. And I think that's where you see most people separate these two teams. Won't matter. In a couple of weeks, it gets decided on the field. But that's how we got there.
This is why power rankings are nothing more than just deciding what you value the most and putting that ahead of kind of everything else. Because if you're just going by this season, like you said, Tennessee has the best resume of anybody in the SEC, and I think it's pretty clear to this point. So I can certainly we made this argument last week about it's just a matter of how do you rank these teams. But if you go off the fact that okay, Georgia's the defending national champion, they haven't lost a game yet, do they still deserve to be in that spot? So to me, that's what it comes down to. Like we say, when you have a bunch of individual rankings like we do for a staff, and you put them all together, there's no way of knowing like who kind of values what, but for this to be the 1 through 3, I don't think that's shocking anybody to have Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama in these spots.
Okay, any parting thoughts on our power rankings?
No, it's like I said, another big week of games. Be sure to check out all of our preview videos that we've done for all the games this week. And as always, our Wednesday night live stream, we'll talk more about all these teams. And be sure to hit that subscribe button. And we appreciate you guys as always.
Yeah, he's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. We cover football, baseball, basketball with equal passion. Best way to catch all our videos is hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon at Southeastern 14.